Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, worshippers of all ages, welcome back to YouTube. My name is SeaRaptor, and today we're continuing our little series here where we look through the brand new skill trees available for each of the different classes in World of Warships after update 0.10.0. Of course, the entire system has now changed. Every branch has its own skill tree, and it's time we take a look and try to figure out, what's new, what's different, what's good, what's bad. What skill points are worth investing in. And so we've done videos for destroyers and cruisers, and today we're going to start looking at battleships. Now I'm going to caveat this whole video up front, guys. If you watch me on Twitch, if you spend a little time with me here on YouTube, you know I am not the world's best battleship player. Okay, I actually, if I'm honest, there's probably only a very limited number of battleships in the game that I even particularly enjoy. So you're probably going to find lots of things to eviscerate me about in this video if you love battleships. But I'm going to do my best because we're all trying to get through this together. Wargaming's made this change. We're all trying to figure it out. So I'm going to do what I can. And feel free, let's have a conversation in the comments, right? If you think I'm an idiot or I've done something wrong or I've said something stupid, let's chat it out because I'm not perfect. I make mistakes too, right? So let's start looking around here. All right. Starting up with Tier 1, we have... There we go. Try and get this up. There it is. The old gun feeder, what we used to call expert loader, still here, still a 1-point skill. Nothing has changed here. This is still available. Now, speaking for myself, there are only a handful of battleships in the game that I even consider this skill on. Most of them are not, like Iowa. This is my Iowa captain just for grins. I just grabbed one. And yeah, this is not a skill that I normally take on a battleship, but there are a handful of places that it's useful. And for 1 point, it's still very cost effective. So I'm going to give it that much. Moving along, we get to Pyrotechnician, the new replacement for Demolition Expert. Now a 1-point skill for a battleship. I'm not gonna lie, guys. People that regularly fire HE out of their battleship guns make me angry. As much cruiser as I play, and as irritated as I am to fight a battleship, when I see a battleship firing HE, it makes me even angrier because it demonstrates to me that unless you're a British tech tree battleship, you don't really know what your role in the game is. Now, I'm not going to stand here and pretend that there aren't corner cases in the game where battleship versus battleship, bow versus bow, then yeah, okay, bust out the HE, especially for like a Montana. Or if you're driving a Conqueror or something like that, yeah, bust out the HE, right? But for most battleships, HE is just super suboptimal. So any skill in this tree that might encourage anybody to fire more high explosive just makes me angry. Luckily, this is such a ridiculously tiny benefit. I know people are going to invest in it. At the same time, it's only 1 point, so I guarantee you somebody's going to invest in it. But I don't know, guys. To me, look, if you're firing HE out of battleship shells, the average battleship shell fire chance is like 30% probably. If I were to sit down and run all the numbers and actually figure it out, it's got to be somewhere in that vicinity. 1% is not going to be noticeable. Yes, I realize it's only 1 point, but come on. In my opinion, do not invest in this skill unless you've literally picked up everything else that you want in the tree and have just points sitting around gathering dust. That's the only time I might even remotely consider investing in this skill. Consumables Specialist. Exact same skill we've seen on the other trees. Exact same position we've seen it in. Reduces your fighter and spotting aircraft reload time. Reduces the reload time of defensive fire, main battery reload booster, and torpedo reload booster. Now, there is no battleship in the game with torpedo reload booster, so you don't have to worry about that. That's easy. However, all these other consumables exist on a handful of ships. Is this an amazing skill for a battleship? No, I don't think so. The most battleships yeah, it's only 1 point, but most battleships are only ever going to get the benefit here for the aircraft facilities, right? Your fighter, your spotting aircraft will come back 10% faster. That's the biggest benefit that probably 90% of battleships in the game are going to get. There's only a handful of ships that have defensive fire. I'm looking at U-Thunder and Hood, and main battery reload booster has a slightly longer list, but again, it's a very short list of ships. So yeah. I don't think you're going to spend a lot of time messing with this skill really for 1 point. Over to Emergency Repair Specialist. Now, this is interesting because once upon a time, in the old tree, we had a skill that reduced it was like high alert, I think, reduced the cooldown time on your repair party, your damage control party consumable. And I want to say it did this by 10%. And I guess Wargaming has that was like a 2-point skill, and I guess Wargaming has decided that that was too strong for whatever reason. And so what they've done now is they've tweaked it now. It's a battleship only skill. No other tree in the game has this skill. It's a 1-point skill, and it's only a 3% bonus, but it also applies to your repair party as well as your damage control party. For 1 point, most battleships, like, this is it, guys. Most battleships are going to take this skill to start their tree off. Like I would. I mean, there's some corner cases in this tree where there are other things that I might look at as a tier 1 skill. You know, maybe like a Scharnhorst for something like Gunfeeder or something like that. But this is where most battleship builds are going to begin, right? Is 3% significant? No. But let's be honest, based on what else we're about to look at, it's really kind of the best thing here, okay? Incoming fire alert, exact same skill, functions exactly as it always has. Still 1 point, still available here if you want this skill. I almost never take this skill on any class of the ship in the game. That's me, right? But I understand from talking to people that there's lots of folks who love this skill, who get regular use out of it. And if you're in that category, here it is, right where you left it. Have fun. Do your thing. And last, preventative maintenance. Of course, we've seen this skill before. This skill's been around a while. It was available in the cruiser tree for 1 point. Here it is available in the battleship tree, also for 1 point. I'm sorry, it was available in the destroyer tree, not available in the cruiser tree. So here it is, but right where you left it if you want this for battleships. I will say there's some corner cases where I think this is a good skill. Way back, we've started talking about French battleships probably 2 years ago, especially a ship like Jean Bart or Richelieu. We've talked routinely about how when you put all these guns into one turret, when your turrets get disabled, that's a huge problem. There are modules you can install to help curb that. This does the same thing. This would piggyback on top of that and make it even less likely that your turrets would get disabled. So yeah, on a ship like Jean Bart, Richelieu, maybe Republique, something like that. Lyon, this could be a really, really good skill. Moving on to the tier 2 skills, let's have a look at Grease the Gears. The old expert marksman used to be 2 points in the old skill tree, still 2 points here in the battleship tree. Lots of battleships benefit from this skill. Lots of battleships have really, really, really crappy turret traverse. Right? Let's look at old Iowa here. It looks like I've got the main battery reload thing installed. Yeah, 6 seconds. I mean, that's pretty noteworthy, right? I went from 39 seconds to 32 and change. So yeah, for 2 points, this is a really, really, really useful skill. I suspect lots of battleships will invest 2 points here. Pretty solid availability. So yeah, definitely. If you're interested, grab this one. I guarantee you, as a battleship player, you will get good use out of this regularly. Good place to invest 2 points. Down here for 2 points, we have Inertia Fuse for HE shells. Now, IFHE is 3 points in the destroyer tree, 4 points in the cruiser tree, but you see it here, only 2 points in the battleship tree. Now, I'm not going to lie, kids. I have no idea why this skill is even in the battleship tree. I cannot imagine. I guarantee you that I'm going to say this, and in the comments, somebody's going to show me there's one instance where this is useful. But I cannot imagine why you would ever spend 2 points for this on a battleship tree. Ever. Like, there must be a corner case, 2 instances or 3 instances in the game where you do it. But I just regularly investing in this skill on a battleship. Just why? Why would you do this? Battleship shells are already the biggest in the game, right? They already get the most penetration in the game. You don't need more. You just don't. I just can't imagine. Look at this. Okay, what's the HE penetration shell of an Iowa HE shell? 68 millimeters. 68 millimeters. So that means basically if you fire the HE, this HE will penetrate the deck armor of an enemy Yamato. Like if you're firing HE shells, you're dropping these 16-inch high explosive shells on his deck at long range, you will penetrate his deck. So why do you need this skill? I don't understand why you would ever invest points here. I mean, like I said, there's got to be a corner case, but why is this skill even in this tree? We couldn't come up with something better? Frustrating. Okay, moving on. Consumables Enhancements. Plus 10%, again, the exact same skill, same position. We've seen it in the other branches. 10% bonus to the duration of hydro, radar, smoke, and engine boost. Most battleships will not get any use out of this skill. Most battleships don't have hydro. German battleships largely accepted, of course. Most battleships don't have radar. Missouri accepted, of course. Most battleships don't have smoke. Italian battleships that are coming, accepted, of course. This might actually be a pretty solid skill for those guys. And, of course, most battleships don't have engine boost. High-tier French battleships, accepted, of course. So there are some corner cases where you might consider grabbing this skill for 2 points. But I'm going to point something out. With the exception of the radar and the engine boost, the other two, hydro and smoke, but the duration of both of those can be buffed with signal flags, which is a cheaper opportunity cost than the points on your commander. So I don't know, right? And of course, there's literally only one battleship in the game that has radar. That's Missouri. So we're really only talking about the only way to buff these skills. Only one of these buffs you can't get anywhere else is engine boost consumable duration. And actually, even then, I can go invest a module in that if I want to, right? So yeah, this is highly questionable. I don't think I would recommend this skill from like 95% of battleship builds, and there's some corner cases where it might be useful. Moving on, come on, interface, let's go. What are we doing? There we go. All right, this is Vigilance. Now, Vigilance used to be a 3-point skill, a really good skill for heavy cruisers and battleships in the old system. Here we are, basically right where you left it, except now it's a little cheaper. I like this, right? I like this. What does this skill do? This skill makes it easier to see incoming torpedoes. You spot them sooner. And you see here, 25% sooner. So basically, when you go and you look in port, every torpedo in the game has a detection radius. So when any ship passes within the detection radius of that torpedo, it becomes spotted. Captains that have this skill, that detection radius, the spotting range of that torpedo gets 25% larger, and so it becomes easier to spot incoming torpedoes for your with a captain with this skill. So this is a great skill for battleships, especially if you don't have hydro. You're looking to brawl, you're looking to push, you want that little bit of extra warning time. This is an amazing skill, and here it is, a little cheaper at 2 points. Pretty handy. Priority target, we've talked about this in the other two trees. Exact same skill, doing exactly what it always has, only now it costs 2 points instead of 1. For battleships, this was a skill that I still took a lot of the time, but I kind of always still kind of scratched my head and questioned the usefulness of it. Like, do I really need this skill? When I took this skill on battleships, it was mostly an acknowledgement of that most of the tier 1 battleships, most of the tier 1 skills in the old system really weren't that good for battleships, so like why not? I don't know that I would invest in this skill a lot of the time in a battleship. That said, it's here available if you want it. If you want this information, it's right here. Have fun, grab it, and it'll work just like it always has. Last but not least, we have AA Gunner. Now, this is the same skill title that we saw over in the Cruiser tree. In the Cruiser tree, it's a 4-point skill for a 20% flat bonus to your anti-aircraft armament or continuous damage. And here it is a 2-point skill for a 10% bonus. One of the things that I like about this is that it's an acknowledgement that most battleships, because of size and tonnage restrictions, already have a higher base anti-aircraft value than basically any cruiser in the game. There are probably some exceptions, right? But tier for tier, battleships pack more A onto the same hull because there's more hull and more deck space. It's simple math, right? So they're giving you the option here to buff your AA, your continuous AA damage. It's a little cheaper than it is in the cruiser tree, and the bonus is a little less. It's literally half the points for half the bonus. That feels pretty reasonable. And on an American battleship like Iowa here, I actually really like the idea of this skill, right? 10% straight up bonus right there across the board, makes that mid-range punch just hit a little harder. You stack that with the flags, like the 5% flag you can do to get these numbers a little higher. And these numbers start to look really good. The math, I won't say it tilts in your favor as the battleship player, but you start to narrow the gap between a battleship that has not invested anything in its AA skills and a carrier player who absolutely has invested in the survivability of his aircraft. This skill starts to help close that gap, and I like it, and I like that it's cheap, and I wish more people would take it. I hope they will. Moving on, Tier 3, let's have a check. Super heavy AP shells, 5% AP damage, 5 more on your AP shells, so an extra 5%. In addition, for basically the anti-basics of survivability, your fires and floods burn longer and flood longer on your hull. I have very mixed feelings about this skill. At first glance, I look at this skill and I'm going, not a chance. Not a chance would I ever take this skill. And yet, And yet, if you look at a ship, let's just look at the Russian line, Revolutia or Kremlin or everybody's favorite Vladivostok, right? Generally, on those ships, because you have the quick cycling, limited number of damage control parties, you tend to manage your fires and floods a little aggressively. And so maybe there's room for looking at this skill on those ships, okay? I'm not saying I'm excited about it, right? Any skill that basically says we're going to give you a little more, and I do mean a little more damage throughput for a huge hit to your survivability, I kind of go, a little. If you're going to give me a little more damage throughput and give me a little hit to my survivability, that becomes interesting. But 30% extra flood and fire duration is not little, right? Now, the only way that I can see that this works, and we'll talk about this in a minute. You see there, I mean, a shell that does originally 13,500 damage does an extra 600 damage. Is that deal breaking? Is that worth investing 3 points in for this negative? I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. To me, I don't think I would pick this skill. Now, I'll say that I'm going to caveat with this, okay? This is a huge if you want to invest, you can pick up this skill, and I'm going to cheat. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. We have the new basics of survivability over here on the right. This would cut that penalty in half. And then by the time you invested in some flags, you could reduce that penalty even further. So if you invest in super heavy AP shells, there are some talents and flags you can mount on your ship that will help counteract this huge penalty. Is all of that worth it for an extra 5% damage per shell? That I don't know. And again, this is where my lack of routine experience in battleships kind of shows through a little bit. Because remember, a typical battleship, let's just use Iowa here, 30-second reload, only gets 2 salvos per minute, right? You're only going to get, in a 20-minute game, you have a maximum of 40 salvos. That's it. That's what you're going to get, okay? So is 5% bonus on each salvo worth it? That's a really, really interesting question, and it's one that I can't answer. Somebody smarter than me is going to have to crunch a bunch of math and decide for themselves, and I'm not sure I'm going to take the time to do it. At first glance, I run away from this skill screaming, but I think there's probably a case to be made here from somebody who's better and well-versed at Battleship than I am. Long-range secondary battery shells here for 3 points. This is basically what they've done is, AFT used to do this. Your secondary range got hot 20% larger, and it was a 4-point skill. Here it is, the same basic skill with some of the fewer bonuses, now a 3-point skill. Now, what am I talking about? Okay, advanced firing training used to be a 4-point skill that gave you a 20% range to your secondary battery and a 15% boost to the damage on your flak bursts. So what they've done here is for 1 less point, they've taken the flak bonus out, and you're only getting the range bonus on your secondary battery, okay? So if you're a German battleship, you like to brawl a little bit, this skill is probably already on your radar. It's probably one you're going to invest in because it hasn't really changed other than the fact that you're not getting the synergistic AA bonus that went with it before. Other than that, functionality is exactly the same. If I grab this, I go over here, I can see my secondary battery range has gone up by 20%. Nice, simple, easy. Adrenaline Rush for 3 points. Again, this skill now appears in all of these trees. It is only 3 points, and rather than it's 3 points now instead of 2. Both it and Priority Target are kind of the big losers in this system. They both are a little more expensive than they used to be. But again, I think that's, as I've mentioned in other videos, I feel like that's an acknowledgement that these skills were really strong for what they cost before. Now, one of the things that I've done 2 videos now, and I just noticed this last night when I was streaming. If you notice, all the reload times get buffed by 0.2% per HP lost. Okay, that's handy. But look at the last one. Your AA damage also goes up as you start to die as well. Now, it's not a huge bonus, right? Every 25% of your HP you lose, you're only getting back 5% AA. So that's not amazing, right? Like, that's not a huge boost. But it didn't used to be there before. This skill just straight up buffed your offense. Now it actually buffs your defense as well. I really like this skill. This is an amazing skill. It's been a great skill forever, but especially on a battleship, like you look at that, the fact that one of the complaints that a lot of people have had, I've had a time or two about AA in this game, right, especially since the carrier rework a couple of years ago, is that, as you take damage in your ship, your AA mounts get destroyed. And so your AA capability is continually degrading the longer you're in combat over the course of a game. And there was no way to regen those AA mounts, no way to buff your AA, your continuous AA over the course of a game. And yet the carrier player, if he manages his planes smartly and makes smart drops, will probably still have planes left towards the end of a match when your AA's capacity, your AA capability has been degraded. And now we at least have something that helps make up for it. Now, is it perfect? No, it's not amazing, right? Again, 5% of this total is not a lot, right? Think about this for a minute. Let's see. I added 10% down here, and if I was down a quarter of my HP, and if I'd lost some mounts, I'd get 5% more AA. That's not amazing, but it is something, and I think that's nice. So you're probably already invested in Adrenaline Rush anyway. I probably would on most of these ships. I think it's still a good place to spend 3 points if you can afford it. Basics of Survivability. This, again, a 3-point skill in this system. It was in the old system as well. So many of the old survivability talents are right where you left them. 15% reduction in fire and flooding time, just like it was before. Although now it's got a small bonus for your 3 points. You're actually getting a new one. Your modules restore 15% faster as well. So that's kind of nice. Think about getting your turrets disabled. And on a battleship, that's a huge one, right? That's a big one. Getting a turret disabled on a battleship costs you time, especially if that turret is in the middle of reloading, because it's disabled, and then once it repairs, the reload timer starts all over again. So this is nice. This just makes that restoration come back a little quicker. I like this. This is still a great skill, and it's a great place to invest 3 points if you're playing a battleship. Every little bit of survivability you can get is always a good thing. Here we have a kind of new one. This one is called Enhanced Anti-Torpedo Protection. Now, there used to be a 1-point skill that basically every battleship took. I'm trying to think, was it a skill or was it? No, I'm thinking of the module. That's a module that increased your torpedo protection. Okay, so this skill is just straight up brand new. So now we have the ability to buff the torpedo protection in the skill tree. The other way to do it is over in the modules. There's that damage control module that buffs your torpedo protection. So let's see. Is this a straight 10% buff? It is. So it doesn't add, it says 10%. Now, what I like about this new system is that I can click on the skill and see, yes, it just straight up adds 10% to this rather than adding 10% to 25%. So I don't go from 25% to 27.5%. It is just a straight 10% buff right on top of this skill. For some ships, some battleships, this is a massive upgrade, right? Some battleships don't have much to go on, so this helps a lot. And again, especially I come back to my German boys, right? My German battleships, right? They have the hydro, yes, but they also have kind of notoriously low torpedo protection. There are some high-tier battleships that you're like, man, I wish I could get that number better. This is not a skill for every battleship in the game. Is this a skill for certain battleships where you really want that extra survivability, or you want to be using it to push or hold a flank when you're constantly getting spammed by torpedoes or something? Yes, I like this. I like this addition. I feel like it's perhaps a bit overcosted. I feel like for only a 10% bonus, that 2 points might be more realistic. I honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I would rather see this skill in place of IHFE. Get this off the battleship tree. Get rid of this. Get it gone. Put this down here and find something else to stick in this slot. That's my opinion, but we'll see what happens. Last but not least, AA Marksman. This skill is basically just like it was over in the cruiser tree. But over in the cruiser tree, it was a 2-point skill down here. But it does basically the same thing. You get a bonus to the focus damage when you press the O or the tilde key to focus your AA. And you get an extra flak burst. Again, an AA-focused battleship like an Iowa here. I like the idea here, right? We go from 8 flak bursts to 9. More flak is good. Why would you complain? And then you get that extra bonus to the priority sector damage. Now, I really like this. I think, for my part, I almost like this on battleships more than I like it on cruisers. And I've been playing around with the skill on cruisers a little bit. But one of the big differences you got to remember about priority sector reinforcement on battleships versus cruisers is battleship the action time is longer and the prep time is longer. So when you do this, when you inactivate your sector focus on a cruiser, it's a 10-second reload. It's a 10-second action time and a 10-second reload. On a battleship, this is a longer, it's a slower buildup and a slower cooldown. So the nice thing about this is you're nominally getting more use out of it if you push this at the right time, because yes, it takes longer to spin up, but while you have planes on that side of the ship, you're getting more out of this bonus. So yeah. I'm kind of liking this. I was surprised at the effectiveness of this skill on a couple of cruisers that I've been derping around with it on. I'm probably going to do some more number crunching on the AA system and some of these new skills and how they interact over the next couple of weeks, and just kind of try and wrap my brain around a few things. But for now, I say my suggestion is, if you want to slaughter airplanes, try this skill for yourself. You can always ditch it later if you don't like it, because retraining is free right now. Give it a shot, see what you think. But I feel like there's something to look at here. And then last but not least, moving on to the tier 4 skills, we have Deadeye. That's right, it's time to talk about the skill that is inducing so much rage and literally changing how everybody in the game wants to play their battleship. This is infuriating. As someone who doesn't play a lot of Battleship, this skill makes me angry. Now, let's talk about why you might take this skill. This skill says that as long as there are no visible enemy ships within your base detection radius, in other words, whatever this number is, when you zone into a game, that's the important number. This number accounts for Concealment Expert, Camouflage, Concealment Expert, and Concealment Module, right? Whatever this number is, as long as there's no visible ships within this range, when you pull the trigger, you get a 10% bonus to your dispersion. That sounds amazing. And I suppose maybe it is. I have not played with the skill. I'm not convinced that it's amazing. I'm convinced that there's a lot of Battleship players out there that think this skill is doing amazing things for them, and it kind of isn't. Let me tell you what I mean. This is where I'm gonna talk for a bit, and I'm confident somebody in the comments is gonna tell me how wrong I am, because I was having this conversation with one of my guildmates literally on stream on Wednesday night, and he was telling me I was an idiot. So I'm gonna say this, and somebody can feel free to come to the comments and prove me wrong. Okay, here we go. All right, I have a 261 meter dispersion ellipse on Iowa. Okay, so that means that this skill, when active, would lower the outer radius of that to 200 and 20, 226, 235 meters. Okay. So what I've done is I've taken I've pulled in the overall size of my dispersion ellipse. Now, as I go sit here and run some numbers, let's go over to the old Google for a minute just to make sure I don't screw this up. Area of a circle. There should be a little calculator that comes up here. That's right. So solve for area. All right, so the area of my dispersion ellipse at 261 meters, I have 130 meter radius. That gives me a 53,000 square meter inside the area of that circle. And then if I lower that, say 235 cut in half is about 100. Let's call it 118, which is not quite perfect, but it's close. That's a 43,000 area, 43,000 square meter area. So literally, what you're doing is you're kind of also reducing the radius. Sorry, you're reducing the area of the dispersion by cutting the radius by 10%. You're cutting the area by about 20%. So that sounds great, but here's my argument, and here's my beef. At the end of the day, a battleship's accuracy, in my opinion, is more about the combination of dispersion and sigma than it is just about dispersion. Sigma is a hidden value. We don't talk about it a lot. Well, we talk about it a lot, but you don't ever see it in port value. And what sigma is it represents the dispersion curve. How consistently a given battleship will throw up, how consistently the shells will group towards the center of the dispersion ellipse. a battleship with a higher sigma, let's say 1.9, which is a pretty good sigma for a battleship. I believe a ship like Giulio Cesare down at tier 5 has a 1.9 sigma. Will more consistently throw its shells towards the center of its dispersion circle than a ship like, say, Fuso, which only has a 1.5 sigma. Now, generally, if you put two ships next to each other, okay, and their difference in accuracy is only a tenth of a point of sigma, you, the human eye, will not ever be able to tell the difference. If you were to run some tests with thousands of shells, you could mathematically prove there was a difference, but over the course of, let's say, 10 battles in a night, you would not be able to tell the difference. However, if the difference is, let's go back to our Cesare versus Fuso example. If you look at that, that's 4/10 of a point, or at least 3/10 of a point difference. You will tell the difference. Like, you can absolutely tell the difference. I am not convinced that reducing the overall dispersion ellipse by 10% will suddenly make a ship like Fuso, which has a junky sigma, more accurate. Now, what it does do is it means that your shells will concentrate into a smaller area. So that sounds great, and it might still work. But I don't know, guys. I am skeptical that this skill is all that and a ball of wax, especially given that, and here's where I'm going to wax philosophical a bit, right? And why I think this skill is just the existence of this skill is just bad for the game, is because if you're a cruiser and you're a destroyer, you need teammate support to play the objectives in World of Warships, whatever those objectives happen to be, right? Whether it's, I'm trying to hold the middle of a map at epicenter, I'm trying to cap this point in domination, okay? You need support. You need battleships playing, up with you. This skill encourages battleships to sit where they spawn. I'll just chill in my spawn. I'm going to sit here and eat ice cream with one hand and shoot ships with the other and never turn my engine on. Why? Why would we ever, in a million years, create a skill that would encourage that style of gameplay? World of Warships is about warships. It's not about shore batteries. It's not about airfields, right? Every ship in this game has got engines and a rudder and armor schemes to move and protect itself. And why would you make a skill like this that encourages people to just literally reverse? Let's play at the back. Let's go play the 10 line. It's fine. I hate the design of this skill. Even if it actually does function, and I know it functions. What I say, even if it actually does provide some amazing bonus, and you're magically all more accurate with your battleship, and I'm an idiot about talking about sigma and dispersion ellipse. I am not convinced that this skill is. I'm not convinced that this. First of all, I am convinced this skill is just badly designed. We need to be rewarding players for playing the objectives, for playing as a team. This skill rewards you for playing selfishly. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Moving on. Improved secondary battery aiming. So this used to be called manual secondary armaments and reduced your dispersion. And it had two different tiers. At tier 6 and below, you got a very tiny bonus to your secondary dispersion buff. And at tier 7, 8, 9, and 10, you got a pretty significant bonus to the dispersion of your secondaries. Wargaming has cut out that distinction. For a 4-point skill, it is now simply a straight-up 35% bonus to your secondary dispersion. The other thing they've done is that under the old system with manual secondaries, when you had manual secondaries on your captain, your secondary battery would not fire until you left-clicked until you set a priority target for your secondary battery. That is gone. That is gone. That was always a dumb mechanic. That is now gone. When you have this skill, what happens is your secondary battery on both sides of your ship will fire at everybody it can. However, you will get to choose one ship in your secondary radius that will have this dispersion bonus applied to it. Now, this bonus is not what it used to be. 35% sounds great. For some ships, it will be. But for 4 points, I've seen a lot of people complaining about their secondary builds are gutted now. I haven't tried it myself. I need to spend some time with it. I'm genuinely concerned that for 4 points this skill's no longer worth it. The accuracy bonus no longer justifies the investment. Like I said, plenty of people out there in the comments will tell me one way or the other. I'm going to try this skill for myself, but that's what it does. It still costs 4 points. If you are playing on a high-tier battleship, the bonus is not as good as it used to be. If you're playing on a low-tier battleship, the bonus is actually better. So take that for what it's worth. Close quarters combat. This is a brand new skill, a brand new tier 4 skill here for battleships. Now, the old BFT, the old basic firing training skill that costs 3 points, used to also reduce the reload time of your secondary battery by 10% because, well, those were small caliber guns. And the way BFT was designed, basically almost all of your secondary battery guns, most of them were 5 inches and below, would fire faster with that skill. Now that skill is gone. There is no basic firing training anymore, and that speed boost has been moved into this skill right here. And now it affects all your secondary batteries. So even if you have the big 6-inch guns in your secondary batteries, like you find on Musashi and Yamato and pretty much all of the bloody Italian battleships we've looked at, they all love those 155 millimeter, 152 millimeter guns in their secondary battery, you get the 10% bonus. That sounds really awesome. I like this. What else does it say? Increases the reload speed of the main battery after an enemy has been spotted within the firing range of your ship's secondary battery. So this is a brawler skill, baby. This is a brawler skill, okay? For 4 points, you're getting a secondary reload buff, and you're also getting a main battery reload buff when you are in brawling range. When you're in secondary range. When your secondary battery is engaging, your main battery reloads faster. I love the design of this skill. I think it's a little expensive. To me, this should be a 3-point skill. I actually would say take this torpedo protection, move it down here to 2 points, ditch this, take close quarters combat, move it over here, make it a 3-point skill. I feel like that'd be a really interesting way to start honing in this tree. But yeah, if you want to build secondaries, like the skills exist, but it's definitely more expensive than before. I'll be spending some time looking at this today on stream. Emergency Repair Expert. This is another brand new skill that increases your survivability. You get 10% extra duration to damage control party when you push your R key to repair, basically to put out fires and stuff. That skill has a duration, right? For certain battleships, it's only 5 seconds. For American battleships, for example, it's 20 seconds. What does this do? This gives you a 10% extra duration of that. Questionable. There's a module that does this same thing that you can put into slot 1 if you're really concerned about it. This is a skill, and you see there one down. It also gives you an extra charge of damage control party, and it also makes your repair party last longer and gives you an extra charge of repair party. What's missing from this battleship tree, fellas? What have you not seen? No superintendent. This is basically for that extra heal, right? This is basically the replacement for superintendent. Why would you take superintendent on a battleship? Generally, you took it for the extra heal. Here's where you can get it now. It costs more points. It's a 4-point skill. But in exchange for the extra point you're paying, your heal also lasts longer. What does that mean? It means it heals more. It means you get extra ticks out of it. So between this and the India Delta signal flag, you get your heals get better, and you get an extra charge of them. This is actually a pretty good skill. For 4 points, if you're playing like a survivability battleship, I feel like this is a pretty solid investment. Getting down to the end here, Concealment Expert for 4 points does what it's always done, improves your detection radius. I think one of the things that I do like about this battleship tree is that there's enough interesting things on this 4-point line that I think you're going to start seeing fewer and fewer battleships invest in concealment. I like this. The idea of a stealth battleship has always irritated me in World of Warships, right? Battleships should not be stealthy. In fact, if you were to blow this skill out of this tree completely, I would not be upset. It wouldn't bother me. It wouldn't bother me at all. Battleships should not be stealthy, guys. That is not what they're there for, right? So yeah, Concealment Expert, still a 4-point skill, still here, but it's now surrounded by some other 4-point skills that are really good. I think you're going to see more and more people maybe go, I'll take the penalty for the extra survivability. I'll take it for something else, right? We'll see. I could be wrong, but here it is, okay? Anyway, last but not least, Fire Prevention Expert. Now, this used to be called Fire Prevention. For a 4-point skill, again, another survivability increase. Not only does it reduce the risk of catching fire, it also reduces the number of fires you can have burning simultaneously on your ship. I'll put a link to the article on fire probably in a little Twitch card, a little video card, and then down below in the video description. So if you don't know how fire works and you play a lot of Battleship, You need to go read that article before you understand how this skill really works, like what it actually does, nuts and bolts. But the bottom line is, if you're looking to increase your survivability in a battleship, this is another great place you can be spending 4 points. And I would recommend it to a lot of different battleship players. Anyway, guys, there we go. That's it. I've gabbed for probably too long on this one. I got bogged down in a couple of places, but that's our look at the battleship tree. Hope you enjoyed it. Wash your hands. Be safe out there. Come argue with me in the comments, and I'll catch you next time.